Spokane Valley could become a sanctuary city of a different
Councilman
kind.
Caleb Collier says that this
I'm proposing that the city of Spokane Valley issue a proclamation stating that our city is a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Welcome to the fire.
Today on Church and State, the invisible everywhere with Dr. G. Hello, Christian Patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we drive morality and religion over tolerance and apathy. And I'm your host, Caleb Collier, once again, your favorite far-right shock jock, and the show that talks about politics and religion. Jesus Christ is our referee, so it's always nice and clean. Real quick, I'm going to point you to the website, churchandstate.media. Do a few things there. Number one, fill out that form so you can get our newsletter, and of course, personal phone call from yours truly. While you're on the site, please check out some of our most recent episodes. We continue to cover a lot of really important subjects. This one right there, Save the Storks. We fight against abortion because as a clear violation of the non-aggression principles, and regardless of the location, that is a baby. Also, check out some of our featured guests over the years. We've had some incredible people, and with every single one of those, all you gotta do is click on the name, and it'll take you right to the episode. Also, peruse through some of the amazing affiliates that we have. These are companies that I believe in, that I support, that I actually shop in, and with every single one of those, use that promo code Church and State, and you'll be helping to support us. And speaking of support, hit the donate button for us. We're so excited. We are now part of CDM Media, but we're also NRBTV, Prepper Broadcasting Network, Newscasters, Your News. We're out on a lot of different locations. We're looking to expand. We got the opportunity to be nationally syndicated at the on the AM/FM, to be in competition with people like Sean Hannity. But if you want to see us do that, please, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can afford, it helps us out. Lastly, if you want to get a hold of us, Church and State 1776 at proton.me. With that, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Now, I am very excited to be talking to, and I might butcher the name here, but Dr. Michael Guillen. And he'll correct me in a minute.
Guillen or Guillen.
Guillen, okay, there we go.
Absolutely.
He is a world-class scientist and communicator. He holds a PhD from Cornell University in physics, astronomy, and mathematics. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room. And for years, he was an award-winning physics instructor at Harvard University, Emmy award-winning science editor for ABC News. He appeared regularly on Good Morning America, World News Tonight, Nightline in 2020, and he's authored many best-selling books. And just recently has done an 80-minute production movie just using consumer-grade artificial intelligence. Dr. G, it is a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, Caleb, thank you so much for that generous introduction, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. Thank you very much.
As am I, sir. I'm so thrilled when I come across somebody such as yourself who is truly an academic. Just the fact that you have 3 different degrees here and some things that I don't fully understand. And that world, that science world, is predominantly influenced by atheists. And you were there, and then you started asking some tough questions.
Yeah, first of all, I don't see myself as an academic, but yeah, I've spent a lot of my life in academia. Caleb, I was born in East LA, and to very humble roots. And my dad was a journeyman carpenter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I had 2 sisters, but I was an oddball kid because in the 2nd grade I fell in love with science. And I say oddball because and I know you're married to a Hispanic woman, so she will understand for sure. I'm Hispanic, and most of my family, we're working class. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't say that in any kind of derogatory way, just the opposite. My uncles were hard workers. They always had grease on their hands. I remember growing up and visiting them at the shop. And yet I fell in love with science, something that nobody in my family had ever experienced before. And that dream of mine to become a scientist took me to UCLA, Cornell, Harvard, and beyond that. And I look back and I realize, the life that I have right now, talking with you right now, Caleb, so different than the life I imagined for myself as that little Mexican kid from East LA. And all I wanted to be was a scientist. And yes, I deified science. It wasn't just the love of my life, it was my God. Science was my God. And when I went to Cornell, I became a scientific monk, by which I mean I worked, 20 hours a day in my basement lab. I didn't know if it was day or night, worked 7 days a week. God was not even on my radar. I wasn't one of those angry atheists. I just was an atheist. God didn't matter to me. He wasn't on my radar. I thought science would provide all the answers I ever would have in life. I thought faith was something that was weird and I couldn't understand it. It's like for weak-minded people. I was all about logic and rationality, and faith just didn't, again, fit into my worldview. And it was. I think maybe my transformation began as early as middle school, and we can dive into it if you want, Caleb. But just to say for your viewers to set the kind of the timeline is, I think I started having an awakening in middle school, but really in grad school. That's when I started really questioning my atheism. And in the end, modern science shattered my atheism and opened my eyes to the existence of God. And that's what my movie's all about, the invisible everywhere, because God is invisible, but he's everywhere. So that's my life in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love the title, and I love that explanation that you gave. I've been very open with my audience. There was a time in my life where liberty had become my God, and for you it was science. But either way, both of us were worshiping the creation instead of the creator.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, because I'll have atheists, and I have people following me from all over. Like, latest count, I have people following me from 57 countries. Can you imagine that, Caleb, in today's day and age? Like with your podcast, I mean, huge reach. I have people following me from 57 countries, all 50 states. And so many of the atheists will write to me and they'll say, you were not really converted. They like question my conversion. They can't really believe it, and I say honestly, no, I did. Watch the movie, read my books, and you'll see it's been a long, long journey, but it's transformed me from the inside out. It's something I would never have guessed, as I said, as a kid growing up in East LA.
Well, Dr. G, we are so pleased that you are on the winning team. One of the things that I tease sometimes on this show is those signs that will appear on people's houses, and the first line is, "This house, we believe in science." And it's like science, this magic word. But the reality is all science points to a creator. Is that not true?
Yeah, I've seen those signs, and it is interesting. It's like, in this house, we believe in science. Well, who doesn't believe in science? I mean, science exists. The question is, how much confidence do you have in what science is saying? And I think more to the point, Caleb, and I think this is the point you're driving at, is, and this for me was part of my awakening. I don't even know where to begin, but let me begin this way. There's a lot of misconception about science being evidence-based. So you'll often hear people who put science like that in their front yard saying, well, in this house, we believe in science because it's evidence-based. It's not faith-based. Religion is all about having faith in some invisible man in the sky, whereas science is down to earth and we don't need faith. We believe in evidence. And what they don't understand, because most of these people who park signs like that in their front lawn don't know anything about science, to be honest with you. That's just been my observation over the years. I've talked to a lot of these people. They don't know anything about the scientific method, really. They're making more of a political statement than they are about anything sensible. But what they misunderstand is this, Caleb, and that is, yes, science is evidence-based. But more than that, it is interpretation-based, by which I mean, look, I can go out and do an experiment, collect the evidence, and then I can have 10 different scientists looking at that same evidence and come up with 10 different interpretations. So the fact that you hear about the scientific consensus is just an expression of a groupthink, that within science, scientists are human beings. And so they're prone to groupthink, because that's where the money is, that's where the prestige is, that's where the adulation is, that's where the confirmation is. If you're a maverick, you're not going to have any of those things. You're going to be kicked to the curb. And the perfect example of that was Einstein. I mean, Einstein came on the scene in 1905. Before that, he was like a nobody. He was working at a patent office in Switzerland. And even before that, he was this kind of outlaw student. The professors hated this kid. They said, "You're never going to amount to anything. You're just so weird, and you don't go along with what we're trying to tell you. You don't go along with the consensus, you know." And so, this was Einstein, right? And little did they know that he would come in 1905 and publish the special theory of relativity, which transformed classical physics into modern physics. So here was the perfect example of somebody who was an outlier, who was perceived to be an outlier, who denied or went against the scientific consensus, you know, and yet he was the one who laid the groundwork for modern physics. So all that to say, people who have signs like that on their lawn have to understand that science at any given time has a consensus. That is to say, there's a groupthink about that agree on one interpretation of the evidence. But at the same time, many other interpretations are possible. They're not taken seriously, not because they don't explain the evidence, they do. But it's just because they're not part of the in crowd. They're not part of this groupthink. The other point I want to make about that is this, that when you say science is evidence-based and it relies on logic, not faith, you know, religion is based on faith and dogma, and, you know, I've heard it all. I believe that at one point in my own life. What I discovered in my own journey, Caleb, is that even science requires faith. And that for me was a real eye-opener. That was part of what began the shattering of my atheism. Because I realized, especially in grad school, when I was at Cornell, so I was a young 20-something. I'm not that anymore, as you can tell. But when I was a young 20-something, I realized, wait a minute. Yeah, I mean, I have to have faith in the scientific method, or how can I be a scientist? And there's no way I can prove to you that the scientific method leads to reliable truths all the time. Sometimes the scientific method will mislead us because, again, it's the way we interpret the evidence that matters, not just the collecting of the evidence. And so that for me was a shock, because I had thought before that science had absolutely nothing to do with faith. So now I say to people who will ask me, and this kind of gets back to the point you made a little bit earlier, are you a person of faith? I said, everybody's a person of faith. Everybody requires faith every minute of every day. Even when I step out of bed, I have faith that the floor is going to support my weight. You know, I had faith going onto this podcast that you were going to ask intelligent questions and that we were going to have a really cool conversation. If I didn't have that faith, because you haven't met me and I hadn't met you before, but if I hadn't had that faith, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So faith is a necessary part of living. You can't live without it. And so every person is a person of faith. The only question is, what do you have faith in? And to those atheists, like you said at one point in your life, you deified liberty. I deified science. Well, atheists who come to me and say, well, I'm not a person of faith. Yeah, you are. And if you're honest with you have to ask yourself, well, what is my God? What is the one thing in my life that matters more than anything else in my life? Whatever that is, that's your God. And for me, it was science. For you, it was liberty. But now for the two of us, it's Jesus Christ. That's who our God is, right?
Amen. So well said, Dr. G. I love it. You're literally preaching on the show. I can't get enough of it. It's fantastic. I wanted to address something that you said, because it's so incredible and applies to really everything. When you're talking about the Mavericks, and you're talking about it in science, but you can apply that to politics, business, education. Nobody tends to like the Maverick until they're successful. And then all of a sudden, everybody starts paying attention to the Maverick. But for the vast majority of people, if you want to think of like a bell curve, they're in that center, and they don't want people outside of that. They don't like the people on the low end. They don't like the people on the high end. And they don't want to pay attention to them until all of a sudden there's success and the whole world cannot ignore them anymore.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've spent my whole life, absolutely, Caleb. And in reply to that, I mean, I have spent my life studying the history of science. I I've always, apart from my specialties, which are physics, math, and astronomy, I've always had this fascination with the history of science, the development of science, starting with Aristotle through the period in Europe in the 16th and 17th century when you had people like Galileo and Newton and Robert Boyle, who were basically fashioning the modern scientific method that we use today. It happened in Christian Europe. I've always just been through, quantum mechanics in the early part of the 20th century, and I was, how did we go from, Aristotle, who believed that the Earth was at the center of the universe, to where we are today? How did we go from Aristotle believing that heavier objects fall faster than lighter objects to now, when we realize no, objects of any mass fall at the same rate? I mean, that was Galileo's famous experiment from the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and so forth. So, what I have found is that you're absolutely right. When you look at the history of science, and by the way, science is about as old as Christianity. It's about 2,000 years old. So it's interesting when you compare the history of science and the history of Christianity, and we can get into that if you want. But just to stick with the point you're making, in every case without exception, it was the maverick, the malcontent, the outcast who changed the course of science. I mean, not just Einstein, but you have somebody like Wagner, who was a German geologist. Up until Wagner came along, everybody thought that the continents on Earth had never moved, that they were permanently fixed in their positions. So you had North America, South America, Europe, Australia. So Wagner was the first one to come up with what we now call, the moving continents. That there's tectonic motion, that these big plates of matter are shifted around by subterranean upflows. The guy was crucified. I mean, he was literally, not literally burned at the stake, but figuratively burned at the stake. And then you had, and I tell stories about that in some of my writings, where there was this one doctor who said that it was important to wash your hands before helping women give birth, because they were having very high miscarriage rates, right? And he said, no, you got to clean your hands. Well, they actually committed him to an insane asylum. I mean, they ruined him. And yet he ended up being right. We now know, you have to wash your hands. So you could go on and on and on. History, in some ways, is not kind to mavericks, but in the end, the mavericks end up having the last laugh. And look at Jesus. Jesus was a maverick in the religious space, right? I mean, Jesus was that outcast. He was the one who was crucified. But who's got the last laugh?
You have a great point there. Absolutely. The ultimate maverick right there. I mean, for myself, I'm a Lutheran. Martin Luther was an absolute maverick. He did not get killed, but they certainly tried a number of times. And now we have the whole Protestant faith because of that maverick. So, be a maverick, ladies and gentlemen, I guess is the conclusion on that one. I want to talk to you about the invisible everywhere, though, because this is such an interesting statement. And I'd love for you to break this down for the audience to understand, because this was really kind of the crux of your journey here, was realizing that for science, the vast majority of matter, or maybe I'm not saying that the best way, but it is actually invisible. Yeah.
When I was a kid growing up, in love with science, deifying science, I lived by the motto, seeing is believing, because I thought, as a kid, I didn't know any better. I thought, well, that's the motto skeptics live by. I'm a skeptic. I'm a hardcore skeptic, would-be scientist. So I'm, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and I'm thinking, seeing is believing, baby. If I can't see it, I'm not going to believe it, right? And forget God, I can't see him, so forget believing in him, right? I mean, that was, like, as I said, not even on my radar. And then it was again in middle school, and I kind of alluded to it earlier in our conversation, so I'll tell you the story. In middle school, I started teaching myself special theory of relativity. I was a very precocious kid. I was about as nerdy as they come. I think back to my poor mom and dad, and they must have thought, what planet did this kid come from? I mean, seriously. But, and I speak about that in my book, Believing a Scene, on which the movie is based. I tell a little story of when I approached my dad to build a chemistry lab, but I won't get into that now. But I started teaching myself the special theory of relativity because, to me as a kid, Einstein was like Babe Ruth. I mean, it was like, he was the Babe Ruth of science. And what astonished me is that Einstein explained in the special theory of relativity, among other things, that there are worlds in space-time that are completely invisible to us that we can never access. They have names like the elsewhere, or the light cone, or beyond the cosmic horizon. And I talk about these and I show them in the movie. That's one of the things that it's visually stunning. But it shocked me because I thought, whoa, time out. Seeing is believing, Einstein. You're telling me there are worlds I can't see out there and can never see, that they are literally beyond my reach ever, no matter how hard I try? That for a kid was hard to compute. And, I wasn't mature enough that it totally shattered, because I just kind of like, okay, well, I'm probably misunderstanding something. And so I shrugged it off. But that was the first encounter I had where science showed me that there are vast portions of the universe, space-time, that are invisible. And then it really culminated when I got to grad school and I started learning about something we call the missing mass problem. And what I learned then is that 95%, imagine this, Caleb, 95% of the observable universe is invisible to us. Now, think about what I just said. 95% of the observable universe is unobservable. It's made up of dark matter and dark energy, and we have no clue. We can talk about that. When I say to you zero clue about what that is, we have no idea. I mean, we first discovered dark matter back in 1933. That's nearly a century ago. It was discovered by a man named Fritz Zwicky. Again, I talk about that in the movie. Here we are nearly a century, and we still don't know what dark matter is. Dark energy is the same thing. We have a placeholder. We call it dark energy. We have no idea what it is, although it's causing the universe to accelerate outward, right? It's kind of an anti-gravitational force of some kind. We have no idea. So that was a shock to me. It's like, well, wait a minute, 95% of the universe I can't see. Now, how can I possibly keep living with motto seeing is believing if I can't even see 95% of the observable universe? And to add salt to the wounds, beyond the observable universe is a completely unobservable universe beyond the cosmic horizon that is 100% invisible to us. So when I say to you, or to say to anybody, that, hey guys, I hate to break it to you, but most of physical reality is invisible. And I even go beyond that. I say it's not only invisible, it's unprovable. Like, I can't prove to you what's beyond the cosmic horizon, and it's unimaginable. And that's why I needed to use AI when I made the movie, because I'm trying to bring to the screen realities that are literally unimaginable. So I try to make them as imaginable, help your imagination as much as possible to even begin to kind of, sort of grasp what we're talking about. But Caleb, we're not talking about something academic. This is the world we live in, brother. This is the world you and I are living and breathing in. This is what's around us and within us, because my movie also talks about the mostly invisible cosmos that's within us, our spirit, our minds, and so forth. And so anyway, that in a nutshell is why I called it the invisible everywhere. Literally, wherever you look, there are invisible realities that surround us and that inhabit us. It's amazing. And most people are unaware of it. They're clueless. They have no idea. They post little signs on the front of their lawn. In this house, we believe in science. I don't even know what that means. It's actually ridiculous when you think about it, right? I mean, reality is so mind-blowing that most people just go through life completely unaware of it. But this movie helps you become aware of it. And that's why most people who watch the movie say things like, it's mind-blowing, it's transcendent, it's this, it's that, it changed my life. It's because it is. I mean, making it was mind-blowing.
I imagine. And I'm so enjoying this interview. And as I said, I've watched the trailer already. I'm really looking forward to watching the movie. I'm going to bring that up in just a second for everybody to see. But Dr. G, I have this theory on heaven and really as God. And my theory is I've been around a lot of artistic people in my life. And in fact, my family was very good friends with Thomas Kincaid, a very famous painter. Wow. And so when you're around a really artistic person, their greatest joy is to show you what they've created. And so I have this theory that when we get to heaven, part of worshiping God is going to be exploring his creation. And if that's the case, I want you to put this on your calendar, Dr. G. When you and I are in heaven together, we're going to meet up and we're going to go explore his creation together. Does that sound fun?
I love that. I love that. But I had to break it to you, brother. I've got a little head start on you because I'm already exploring God's creation. I've got some decades on you. I've spent my whole life exploring God's creation. It is mind-blowing. And it breaks my heart to think that Christians see science as the enemy. Science isn't the enemy, man. Science, by virtue of its exploring creation, acquires a kind of a deep understanding of the Creator. You talk about Thomas Kincaid. When you look at his paintings, it tells you something about him. The lighting in those paintings are just surreal. When you look at a Da Vinci, the Mona Lisa or the Last Supper, it tells you something about Da Vinci. You look at Michelangelo's, Sistine Chapel, it tells you something about the artist. Well, I've spent my entire life, Caleb, since the second grade, studying God's creation. And so I have a little bit of an advantage on you, my brother, and most other people who hate science or who want nothing to do with science, because I see the Creator in creation. It's a beautiful thing. And the movie, again, and I use music in that movie, and what I'm hearing from people is that they are deeply moved. They not only see mind-blowing science, but they are deeply moved by God's creation. It is. You cannot spend your whole life studying creation without coming away with a sobering, mind-blowing appreciation for the brilliance and the love of God that God put into creation.
Amen. I completely agree with that. And so I guess when you and I are in heaven, not to downgrade you, but maybe you'll be the tour guide as you and I explore. And I'm sure there'd be filled with a number of people that are exploring God's creation. Now, if you want to explore God's creation right now on Earth, go to Michael, and maybe I'll spell this, GUILLEN.com. michaelguillen.com, and you can see the Invisible Everywhere trailer has a link right there. Chris is showing it to you. Watch the movie now. Just hit on that link if you want to buy one of the books right there. We're going to come back and we're going to explore this a little bit more. Hey, this is Caleb Collier with the Church and State Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I want all of you to go to Galileo.com. You need to stay connected no matter what comes our way. Whether it's government intrusion or a meteor falling from the sky, Galileo has you connected. As a Marine veteran, I can tell you that communications is essential. Galileo has you connected. Whether it's worldwide coverage, uncensored content, or real-time alerts, Galileo is going to make sure that you're connected with your friends, family, and neighbors. Just head on over to churchandstate.media, scroll over to shop, and hit Galileo.com. Make sure to ask them for a free bivvy stick, and make sure to use that promo code ChurchAndState. And we are back, and thank you for staying with us. You're over at churchandstate.media, and we're going to go right back to our incredible guest. But real quick, I do have to plug one of our awesome affiliates, and I'm thinking mark37.com. We've been talking a lot about science. Well, science can be applied in numerous different ways. One of the ways is to stop the digital surveillance that's going on from big corporations and government alike. If you're tired of your devices spying on you, get yourself a ghost phone or a ghost laptop. All right, they're either Graphene OS for the phone or Linux for the computer. Fantastic stuff. I believe in these guys. Go to mark37.com. Use that coupon code Church and State. You'll get a discount and you'll help support us. And real quick, also, hit the donate button for us. Help keep conversations like this one alive. They're fascinating. As you know, I bring in a lot of really incredible guests, and the subjects vary from abortion to science. I mean, you never know what we're going to talk about on Church and State. So if you like that, hit the donate button for us. All right, with that, let's go back to our guest, Dr. G. I've been thoroughly enjoying this conversation. I hope you have as well, to the audience. But the invisible everywhere. This movie, and honestly, like, ladies and gentlemen, take the time to just check out the trailer. It's not even 3 minutes long, and you're going to see some absolutely stunning things that my guest, Dr. G, was talking about. The only way he could bring this to our senses was to use artificial intelligence. Is that right, sir?
Absolutely. You know, I had consulted with a special effects person in Nashville. He's very experienced. He's done a lot of movies with special effects. His name is Sean. And I said, Sean, here's the script to my movie. I said, take a look at it, because I'm going to need some really heavy-duty special effects. I mean, I'm trying to basically introduce the world to a universe they've never seen before. I want to introduce the world to the invisible universe that is around us and within us. So he took a look at it. And he said, well, we can farm it out to Australia. Right now, Australia is the place to go to for really high-end special effects. But, you know, that was not only very expensive, but it just, and I worked with some of the artists, and they just weren't getting it. You know, I would have a Zoom session with them the way I'm talking with you right now on Zoom, and I would try to explain to them, no, this is what the elsewhere looks like. This is what the light cone looks like. This is, you know, and so forth and so on. And they would come back 2-3 days later, and God bless them. You know, they were very gifted, very talented, but I was just left feeling like, this is not going to be the movie I was hoping it was going to be. It's just not going to have the impact I want it to have on people. And so I was just browsing through the internet one day, and this would have been probably early March of last year. And I noticed that there were these AI video generators. This was something brand new. I'd never heard of them before. And the one that was really causing the greatest commotion was something called Runway. And so I logged on, I subscribed to it, and I thought, okay, well, I'm a scientist. Let me just do a little experiment here. I'll feed it a line from my script and see what kind of imagery it creates. Let's see what kind of, you know, video imagery it creates. And the first time I did that, it was okay. It was like, oh, that's interesting that it could even do that. I mean, AI generators was brand new. Now everybody's talking about them. But back then, trust me, Caleb, nobody was talking about them. Nobody knew. This is just a year ago, man. And that's how fast this thing is exploding, right? So, but I kept pumping it, you know, with the same prompt, rewording it a little bit. And it was, I think, about the 15th or 16th try, no kidding. It spit out something that just blew me away. And I said, oh, man, Lord, this is the way. And the Lord just spoke to me. I prayed with my wife, Laurel. I said, you think I can make a movie? I mean, I'm talking about like a full-length motion picture. This thing is spitting out video that's 5 seconds long, because that's all you could get from those video generators back then. Now you can get more. Not a whole lot more, maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds. But back then, the most you could get out of these things was 5 seconds. I said, I make a full-length motion picture 5 seconds at a time? And the Lord just said, yeah, go for it. And so now I say to people, and I mean this seriously, this is a movie funded by prayer. Because when I made the commitment to step out in faith and to use these AI generators to make this movie, right, that's meant to glorify the Lord, to tell my story of how science shattered my atheism, et cetera, but it's meant to glorify the Lord, right, the creator of this universe. I reached out to a bunch of churches, and I said, look, I need you to pray for me, because I'm about to do something that I've never done before, and then I would discover nobody else has done before, but that discovery didn't come until later. I said, I've never done it. I made a movie before, the traditional way. It's called Little Red Wagon. It's on Prime. It went to the theaters. It's on Amazon Prime now. It's distributed by Lionsgate. So, you know, I know how to make a traditional movie. This was something very different. It's me literally sitting in the room I'm talking to you from right now. There's a computer on my lap. I made the movie entirely on my own, working 12-hour days straight, right? And I said to the churches and what I call my chief prayer warriors, individuals and churches, I said, I need you to pray, but not weekly and not when you feel like it. I need you to commit with me right now to take this journey with me that I'm about to take, right? To pray daily for it. Daily. It's got to be 7 days a week for as long as it takes. And I didn't know how long it was going to take me. And they committed. And at the end, you'll see when you watch the movie in the end credits, I list them. And it even includes a rabbi, God bless him, in Charleston, South Carolina. He's actually the director of the Hasidic Chabad there in Charleston, South Carolina. Rabbi and his wife. I just could not have done it without their sustaining prayers. And so I tell people in all seriousness, Caleb, this is a movie funded by prayer. I'm going to repeat that. This is a movie funded not by millions and millions and millions of dollars to some special effects house halfway around the world. But this is a movie funded by prayer. There's no way this movie could have been done on my desktop by myself without the power of that prayer. So it's been quite apart from the beautiful movie that I'm really proud of. I mean, I'm trying to be, able to give, not Cain, but able, giving God my best, right? I don't want to be Cain. I want to be able. I want to come to God and say, God, this is my little movie that I made to glorify you. Please accept it as acceptable to you. And so it's been a beautiful journey, Caleb. It's been, even talking to you right now about it just brings it all back to me. It was grueling, one of the most grueling things I've ever done in my life. I won't kid you. It took a pound of flesh and then some, but it was a beautiful, and it's still a beautiful experience because I get to talk to media all over the world. Tomorrow I'm talking to Ireland, to the #1 talk show in Ireland, in Dublin, about this movie.
Wow.
That's why I put the movie online and not in theaters, because I have people following me from 57 countries. And I thought, well, I have followers in Bangkok, Thailand. How are they going to, if I distribute it in theaters like I did the previous movie, Little Red Wagon, how are they going to go see it? So I said, bing, the internet. So you just go to theinvisibleeverywhere.com or to michaelguillen.com. And there it is, like you showed it. There's a theater there. You can rent the movie. You can buy the movie. You can buy the movie with extras. If you click that button that says "Watch the movie now," it literally takes you into a box office, a virtual. There it is. So you can rent the movie, buy the movie with extras. We call that the ultimate expedition. So I give you a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that's kind of cool. Or if you're a church or you have a youth group and you want to show the movie, I also host a screening. And the reaction has just been through the roof. Laurel and I cannot believe it. Well, we can believe it because it's God. But you know what I mean. It's like it's beyond our wildest imagination. So to God alone be the glory.
Amen. Like I said, I've watched the trailer here. It's phenomenal, and so I'm just going to echo that again to the audience. I want you to see this movie. I want you to go to the website and check out this movie, sir. It's honestly, you went into a mission field, and perhaps people haven't described it that way before. But for scientists, or for people who they dismiss the faith-based stuff and they're all logic-based, there's a lot of fertile ground, I guess, is the best way to put it, for people who can believe in something like dark matter and dark energy that we cannot see. And it takes faith for me to believe that, yes, there is dark energy and dark matter out there. But then to say, but God? Absolutely not. That doesn't make any sense. My mind can't wrap itself around that. I mean, I would say it takes just as much faith, or not more, to believe in dark matter as it does God.
That's the conclusion I came to, honestly. And it's not even dark matter and dark energy. That's not even the half of it. I mean, I talk in the movie, and I don't want to give too much away about the movie because I want it to be, fun and surprising for people. But I will give you this one little tidbit, and I talk about something called the quantum vacuum. And it's the most bizarre thing you've ever heard about. Again, I don't want to give it away. But scientists believe that was how the universe began, in the quantum vacuum. And I go through in the movie and I say, I give you the science's creation story, in effect. In the beginning was the quantum vacuum, and then this, and then this, and then this. And I just challenge anyone, including my atheist friends who follow me, because I do have a lot of atheists who follow me, to listen to that, to watch that, and to come away and still insist that science is entirely fact-based. Science is a very speculative thing. As I say, we collect evidence, and the scientific method is very strict about how we collect evidence. So that you have to give credit to the scientific method. It's very rigorous when it comes to that point. Okay, if I'm going to go out and do an experiment, I have to do it properly, double blind or whatever it is. So give credit to the scientific method for that. But once I've collected the evidence, it's a free-for-all, because anybody can interpret that evidence any way they want. Now, there is something we call Occam's razor in science that says, well, where there are many possible interpretations of the same evidence, always choose the simplest one. Just pause there for a moment. I'm going to repeat that. So this is what we call Occam's razor. This is a kind of a rule of thumb that most scientists follow, right? You can't prove that it's true. You can't prove that it's effective. You can't prove that it's the best way to get to the truth. But again, you take it on faith. You take Occam's razor on faith. And it's a rule of thumb that we use when it comes to interpreting the evidence. So it says when you're looking at evidence, when you're evaluating it, when you're analyzing it, and there are many different ways to interpret that evidence, right? Always pick the simplest explanation. That's Occam's razor, right? But my question is why? Why should the simplest explanation be the best one? Maybe the most complicated explanation can be the best one. Who says, right? Again, there's no proving. You can't prove Occam's razor. It's just something you take on faith. But go even one step further. Okay, let's say, oh, I'll play along with you. Let's go with Occam's razor. Let's do that. Let's buy into Occam's razor. Let's have faith in Occam's razor that it's our guide dog to the truth, right? Well, what's a simpler explanation for the beginning of the universe? Some weird random thing based on some weird concept like the quantum vacuum, or that there was just a brilliant creator? I mean, seriously. I mean, if you look at the Mona Lisa and you sit there and you go like, oh, I wonder how look at that Mona Lisa. I wonder how that Mona Lisa came about. And you could sit there and you can concoct all kinds of explanations for how the Mona Lisa appeared on the canvas. Well, some extraterrestrials came at night and, they dabbed little pieces of paint randomly. And look at that, just the random dabs of paint from these aliens from other planets put together the Mona Lisa. That's a possible explanation. It sounds far-fetched, but it's a possible explanation, right? Or you can just say, you know what? This has got to be the creation of a really brilliant, gifted artist. And that's how I look at it when I look at the universe. And by the way, when I was giving you that example about the extraterrestrials, don't shrug it off. When Richard Dawkins, who is one of the most outspoken atheists out there, was actually cornered one day, and on camera, and said, "Okay, well, Professor Dawkins, he's an evolutionary biologist at Cambridge in England, a brilliant guy. He wrote a beautiful book called The Selfish Gene. He's a best-selling author. He's a brilliant guy, but he's an atheist. I mean, devout as they come. God bless him." And so the interviewer said, "Well, Professor Dawkins, I mean, you claim that there is no God and God did not create the universe. That's just a fiction that we made up. It's a figment. God is a figment of our imagination. So how do you, Professor Dawkins, an evolutionary biologist of high standing, how do you explain how life came about on Earth?" And with a straight face, Caleb, and you can Google this. It's on Google. He said, well, he kind of hesitated a little bit. He's like, well, he said it's possible that extraterrestrials visited the Earth and planted the seeds for life that we see today. I mean, he said that.
Yeah, that's panspermia. That's what a lot of scientists are now pointing to.
That's a form of panspermia. Yeah, exactly. And I talk about that in the movie, by the way. I talk about like 3 or 4 of the kind of atheist versions of creation, and panspermia is one of them. But I'm just telling your viewers that when I was using that little example of the Mona Lisa and saying, hey, extraterrestrials came in and just dabbed paint on the random, this is how a lot of atheists think. when pushed to the corner. I mean, this is how far they'll go. So the next question to Professor, well, where did the extraterrestrials come from?
Exactly.
I mean, you can keep kicking that can down the road, but sooner or later, man, the rubber meets the road, and you've got to come clean about how did something come from nothing, because that's really where that line of questioning takes you. At some point, you can keep kicking the can down the road. Well, what created that? Well, that was created by this, And you have people like Stephen Hawking, for example, and I interviewed Stephen Hawking. I was the first correspondent on TV to interview Hawking. I flew to England. I interviewed him, his wife, his young son, Tim. Yeah, because I had met him at Harvard, and so he trusted me to interview him. Otherwise, he was very reticent about being interviewed. And, he died an atheist, and he struggled to the end, Caleb, God bless him. He struggled to the end to figure out, how did something come from nothing? And he kind of boxed himself in with concepts like imaginary time. And he was just this desperate effort to try to avoid anything but the Creator.
The truth.
Which, if you want to believe Occam's razor, to me, is the most simple, the most straightforward, the most elegant explanation for what I have studied all my life, the Creator.
Yeah, it is. It's as they told us in the Marine Corps, keep it simple, stupid. And that is the simplest way. Yeah. It's the simplest explanation. Well, sir, I apologize. We ran out of time, but I got to have you back. I mean, this has been such an incredible interview, and I want to dive into some more things. I mean, just talking about evolution there, we didn't even really touch that, but that'd be another fascinating subject to approach. But I do want to point everybody, once again, theinvisibleeverywhere.com is the website. Ladies and gentlemen, please watch this movie. I guarantee you it will not disappoint. And sir, any last words for the audience?
Just this, that when you watch the movie, I think you will at least come up with away with an appreciation for the deeply mysterious and deeply beautiful universe that surrounds us and that inhabits us. And the second thing I want to say is to you, my brother, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service to our country and for your devotion to glorifying the Lord, and more than that, speaking truth with love, because there are a lot of people out there speaking truth with a whole lot of hatred. But what I loved about this interview and what I love and respect about you is you speak love. You speak truth with love, which is exactly what Jesus commanded us to do. So thank you for the privilege of having that conversation with you.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for that compliment. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. If you hold on one more minute post-production to say our goodbyes, I'd appreciate it. But again, thank you for your work and joining us on Church and State.
You bet. My pleasure. God bless you, brother.
God bless you, too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. From a scientist who was an atheist who discovered the truth that it has to be God. Ladies and gentlemen, if some of the most brilliant minds in the world come to that conclusion, then you should also come to that similar conclusion. Jesus is everywhere. Jesus is Lord. Church and State is brought to you in part by Colonial Life Spokane Independent Agents, Finders Insurance, and Mark37.com. I'm Caleb Collier. I was born for a storm.
Welcome to the fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want all of you to be a walking billboard. Some of us don't have platforms such as Church and State, but you know what? We can wear t-shirts and engage in great conversations with Christians and patriots all across the country. Stand Up Now apparel is the best t-shirts out there. These are American-made, owned by a Christian and a patriot, and the material, it's like getting a warm hug from yours truly. One of the better things as well is there's no tags. I hate tags. I know you do as well. I don't know how many times I've cut off a tag and ended up with a hole in my shirt. You never have to worry about that with Stand Up Now apparel. These are the best shirts out there with the greatest messages. Let me give you a few examples. There's a t-shirt out there that says Armed with Ephesians 6 on it. I gotta tell you, when I wear this in town, I get a lot of comments and a lot of eyebrow raises. There's other shirts that include pure blood in Hebrew, obviously in reference to the vaccines, and also you can get Church and State merch there as well. We've got our flagship shirt, I Was Born for a Storm, with Church and State right on it. You got to order this shirt. Go to Stand Up Now apparel for t-shirts and hats, all of this great merch with great Christian and patriotic messages. Remember to use that promo code Church and State.
This is Caleb Collier with churchandstate.media. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not sleeping on my pillow, do you even patriot? I got to tell you, this is the most wonderful stuff from a man who's given it all for your freedoms. Whether it be the pillow, the sheets, or the slippers, I absolutely adore MyPillow. MyPillow has the greatest products around. I know when I want to shuffle around in my bathrobe and slippers and yell at the neighbors, of course I'm buying from MyPillow. I need you to head on over to churchandstate.media, scroll over to shop, because every single time that you purchase any of these products using the promo code Church and State, you ensure that we keep our message out on the air.
I thank everybody for your support in using promo code Church and State. You guys go to mypillow.com/Church and State too, and then you get your own little platform right there, everybody.
Hey, this is Caleb Collier, and I know you're excited for the Church and State podcast. Now, as a Christian patriot, I love precious metals, whether it's gold, silver, palladium, and of course, lead. And this is why I want you to go over to Ponderay Ballistics, don't ask me how to spell it, for all of your ammunition needs. Remember, that's PENDOREILLE ballistics.com for all of your ammunition needs. I want you to head on over to churchandstate.media/shop, go to Ponderay Ballistics, and have a shooting good time.